the OMFL.
You can't touch this.
And you're in the mix with Kinda Real Nate. Here's another OMFL production.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Press Pass Live. I'm sorry, we were sitting here chatting away and realized, oh yeah, the intro's over. We might want to go ahead and get this show started. So thanks for tuning in tonight, late on a Tuesday night, but we weren't able to get together this weekend, so we wanted to make sure we got a show out. We'll get another one out this coming weekend, but let me welcome in my one and only guest, my buddy, Mr. Dwayne. How you doing on a Friday night? It's not a Friday, it's a Tuesday night.
It sure feels like it. I wish it was a Friday night. It's all good down here, man. The weather's feel nice outside. It hasn't rained all week like it was supposed to rain, and I didn't accomplish anything today, and I actually feel really good about that. It was a really good day to just do nothing today.
Mr. Wayne is stepping up his game. He's got him a brand new mic he showed me. He's got the cam working. He's got everything like rocking and rolling. We didn't rock the cams because it's super late tonight, but usually when there's two of us, we can usually rock the cam. But hopefully, we got to get to we got to do another broadcast with commentary here soon. But I'm here. I'm ready to go. There's a little bit that we need to talk about and catch everybody up on. I got the Saints Falcons victory on the big screen right now. I've got the podcast rocking and rolling. We are ready to go and fire this up. So let's just jump right into it. Of course, our buddy Dawson and Maniac were not able to join us tonight, but we're going to jump in and get some thoughts and look at weeks 4 through 8 because we actually are 4 through 7 because we're actually finished through 7, actually wrapping up 8 here tonight. And so there's lots of games to go back and look on. So give me, what is your one game that kind of sticks out to you as the game that we should have watched from weeks 4 through 7?
Well, there was one I really wanted to pick, and it was the Rams and Seahawks game that ended in a tie, amazing enough. I really want to pick that game just because, like I said, I've been a big fan of the Rams and what he's been doing there. I think he's got a good squad to build with, and but he plays in one of the toughest divisions there is in the OMFL. But I did go with the Rams, but I went with a completely different game just because I'm really intrigued by both these teams. You had the Rams and the Broncos, and if I'm not mistaken, I'm trying to think what week that was in. I think it was in week 5. Let me double check that real fast. I think it was week 5. But it was just a really intriguing game.
Week 5 was your Rams and Seahawks tie. Yeah.
Week 6. I'm getting all twisted. Week 6, this game just really stuck out to me because it was very indicative of the Broncos. This is how they want to play the game. The Rams won this game 45-33. It was a really solid win for the Rams. He really tried all last Madden to really kick those Rams in gear, and he got to the point where he's really competing with guys. And I think he's shown so far. He's got a couple wins early in the season, a tie against a 4-time champion. He's had nothing to look down upon this season. And beating Glaze and the Broncos and the high-powered offense he has. Is something that he needs to he needs to mark that down as a solid win. If you start going over some of the stats this game, it was really ridiculous, and I love it. The Rams had a ridiculous 316 yards rushing. 316 yards rushing.
And his top rusher was not Gurley.
It wasn't Gurley. You had 112 yards receiving to go with it. You had 62% on third down. He did have 4 turnovers. You hate turning the ball over like that, but if you can
he
run
was
the ball
5 for 12 too passing.
Yes, Uh, 316 yards. Honestly, I don't know why you had to throw 12 times doing that. But you go to the Broncos. He had 190 yards passing, which is really low for Glaze. 75 yards rushing. He was only 27% on third down, which makes me, the turnovers kept him in this game because, like I said, it's only a 12-point game. And all the statistics lean towards the Rams' way. You go over to some stats. Like I said, Goff was 5 for 12 passing, 136 yards. 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. Sounds like he just tried to chunk the ball downfield and tried to make Glaze just pay a little bit of attention to the passing game. But he should have just kept 8 guys in the box. I'm joking, of course. That's an FPR violation to keep 8 guys in the box all game. But Muhammad and Gurley just tore it up. Muhammad had 16 carries, almost 230 yards rushing, 4 touchdowns. I mean, if he didn't get Player of the Week, I don't know who did this week. If this wasn't a telltale thing of the Rams need to look at this and build upon this success running the ball, that you can't have 316 yards every week, but, man, you can keep pounding the rock. Gurley, 10 carries, 93 yards. Most teams, that would be your leading rusher. They'd be happy. He was the second place on this team today. You keep going down. Cooks, he made the most of his 2 catches, 82 yards, 2 touchdowns. You keep going down defensively. He had a total of 8 sacks on the day, or 7 sacks on the day, excuse me, with Sue and Donald leading the way. Now, you're talking about a front four right there that's really mean and I think is really undervalued on this Rams team. We all know, how well they're built and how much money they've invested in that line. Whether they keep them together long term is a whole other story, but for now and today, like I said, Sue had a forced fumble. Donald had a forced fumble. Man, that is a dynamic duo on that defensive line. You go over to the Broncos, Case Keenum, 14 to 25, 220 yards, a touchdown, 2 picks. Honestly, that's not a bad day for most people. But it's not good for Glaze. Glaze really expects more. He likes to, he is the definition of air raid offense in the OMFL, and he's always been an offensive juggernaut team. Royce Freeman had 2 touchdowns, but he did only average 3 yards a carry on his 15 attempts. Booker had 4 carries for 22 yards. Nixon, 5 catches, 112 yards, didn't score the touchdown, but scored the touchdown. I'm so childish. I wanted to laugh saying that. But Nixon is an import player. He's a guy that he wants to feed the ball to.
And he's a stud.
And I think that gets him. He is a stud. And I think he gets in trouble sometimes. I think, especially with this all Madden settings, the defense, they catch on. And I think that it's a catch-22 because you do have a star player, but you're trying to force it to him. Sutton, 3 catches, 45 yards. Defensively, he had 4 sacks. Von Miller. It's just been another Von Miller game, 2 sacks, forced fumble. Davis and Marshall both have interceptions. But it's just not enough to compensate for the running game the Rams had today.
Yeah.
I think he ought to be really proud of what he did running the ball and really enjoy those games because those games don't come along very often where you have that astronomical amount of running yards like that. Hey, man, just keep running the ball. It's a recipe for success. And that's just the game that stuck out to me because it's the Rams getting a really solid win over a great opponent. And, it's just a good win, and it's a win that keeps him in the race in that NFC West, and that's my game that I had to choose.
Yeah, and you have to give it to the Rams. I know they're 2-5-1, but they tied the 4-time back-to-back OMFL champion in the Seahawks and Mo. You go into Denver against a very good Broncos team that has some offensive powerhouses and even some really good defensive superstars, and you come away with a very impressive victory where you basically had your way in the running game against them. Like, the Rams have figured this thing out, and I always knew that they would. I played him in the preseason, and that team is so fast and so athletic. I was like, man, you're going to figure this thing out, and I just had faith that he was going to get things figured out. And you have to, pay attention. The Rams are getting this thing figured out, and as they continue to gain confidence and roll, I have them next, and I haven't played in a couple weeks because of some sims. I'm very afraid to be playing the Rams because that team is so good and so powerful that you have to pay attention to them. I mean, because they really have a very, very talented team that people are going to have to take notice of. I'm going to go ahead and go to Week 7. Now, Week 7 was the first week that we fixed some sliders and figured out for us that the pass blocking slider. I just want to take a quick pause Thank everybody for tuning in. It's late at night. It's 9:52 Central Time, and we still got 5 people tuning in. So thanks so much for watching the show. I do have YouTube up in case you guys have any questions or stuff as we go along. But thanks again for watching the show here. But I'm going to go with the Houston Texans' victory over the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Houston Texans have been on a roll in Madden 19. They really are one of the powerhouses, really showing the AFC that, man, you're going to have to take notice and know the championship probably in the AFC at least runs through Baltimore or Indianapolis. You're going to have to think about Houston and think about this team and think about what they're going to be bringing to the table. They go in and face the Jacksonville Jaguars and come away with an impressive 31-13 victory over the Jaguars. Watson was 10 for 15, only 124 yards. But look at this Miller, 13 rushes, 120 yards. That is outstanding against a very impressive Jaguars defense and a Jaguars team that is actually a pretty good team running the ball, but he only rushed the ball for 63 yards. So the Houston Texans held them to 63 rushing yards, 126 passing yards. They had 5 sacks. This is after we fixed some things. They had 5 sacks. They had 4 takeaways. I mean, they basically had their way against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Looking at some stats here, Blake Bortles, 15 of 24. Way too many passes for Brady and his Jaguars, but 140 yards, 3 interceptions. Of course, they're without Leonard Fournette, so Lacey had 4 attempts for only 1 yard, Carson 12 for 62. On the other side, Miller had 121 on 13 carries, a long of 75. Watson was a very efficient 10 of 15 for 124, but the big stat, he didn't turn the ball over. Foreman had 6 for 10, but he did have a touchdown, so some really big plays from that offense. Very efficient protecting the ball. And then if you look at this Texans defense, they had a sack from McKinley, 2 from Watt, 1 from Merciless, 1 from Reeder. They had an interception from Cunningham. McKinley also had an interception. Moore had an interception. I mean, they just swarmed after the ball and made play after play after play. That is an impressive victory for the Houston Texans, who now sit at 5-2 and really are going to make sure that the AFC takes notice, because the Jacksonville Jaguars are a very good player, and he's always one of our top defensive players, and for him to give up 31 points to the Houston Texans and only score 13, it really goes to show you how good the Houston Texans are this year, and that people should take notice.
Yeah, I think the Texans came in with a game plan to not let Kratos take over this game. I think Kratos has, in my opinion, been one of the most, I ain't gonna say surprising players this season, because we all knew he was a great player, but to impact the game the way he has these first 8 weeks has been, legendary. I think he did a really good job of not letting him take over the game. 4 tackles, no sacks, no picks, no 4 fumbles. You take out a player like that, and you make Brady play your game, which is Brady throwing the ball 24 times and only rushing 16. And I see Fournette not in there, and I guess Fournette was still hurt. Which
he's still injured.
That's a big thing. But when you make Brady get out of his comfort zone and pass the ball, that's what you get. And Brady is a great player, but 15 for 24, 140 yards, and those 3 picks, that's killer for a team that wants to run the ball and play defense. And the Texans have did it twice this year. They've got some really big wins. I think they've beat everybody in their division at least one time. Yeah. And they're setting the table really high for the AFC South to come down to the wire the second half of the season. And like I said, guys, if you haven't took notice yet of the Texans, you better pay attention.
So we're right at the halfway point in the season. Week 8 is going to be wrapping up here probably in the next hour or so, maybe even before the show is done. And also, again, we've got the pass block sliders fixed. A little bit of feedback that maybe it's a little too good, but again, we're going to give it a couple weeks and let people really play with it before we go adjusting some sliders. But we will give it some bumps, some tweaks if we need to. But with that said, before the playoff picture kind of takes form here, a lot of changes can happen even before our very next show that's going to happen this weekend. I want to just this is a good time to just take a pause and see where the power has shifted from Madden 18 into Madden 19. And I want to talk about the best offense in the OMFL. I do have the team stats up, but my question to you is, who do you feel like carries the best offense in the OMFL up to this point in season 80?
Uh, you know, I think it comes down to a couple different teams. I don't like to. Um, I guess some of these teams just have strengths and weaknesses. I think if you look at Cincinnati, who's the best passing team in the OMFL, hands down, I think he brings. When you match it with him, he can pass for 400 yards. And I think you go down somebody like the Eagles, who can run the ball ridiculously. I played him this year with he traded for Le'Veon Bell. Jennings, I think that was crazy, but I understand that because he held out in real life too. So I can understand why you wanted to deal him and get what you could for him. But the Eagles can take any run and take it to the house every play. He's got 2 or 3 backs that are just dominating backs. He's averaging 144 yards running so far this season a game, which is ridiculous when I think you only have let me double check this, but I think you have 8 teams in the league averaging 100 yards a game rushing, and he's just got a running attack that's nonstop, but he can't put the passing game together. You look at somebody like Cincinnati, though, who passes the ball really well and who is starting to get his running game coming around. It's hard for me to pick, anybody other than Cincy as the best offensive guy. If you know you're matching up with him, you come to an offensive juggernaut, and he's capable of putting 45, 50 points on anybody in this league.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's got a really talented skill set on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, his team is only 76 overall. I think we talked about this on an earlier show. I mean, he's doing this with Andy Dalton, who's got 11 touchdowns, 67% completion percentage, 2,125 yards. I mean, Giovanni Bernard he's averaging 4.6 yards a carry, 7 touchdowns, 443 yards from him. If you look at their passing attack, John Ross is averaging 16 yards a catch, 600 yards on the year on 38 receptions, 2 touchdowns. Pettis is playing well. He's kind of struggling with the drops, but averaging 19.2 yards per catch with 3 touchdowns on the year. Look, it's a very, very talented team, and he's very, very good at what he does on offense. But as I expected you would do, you have to talk about the Indianapolis Colts. I mean, let's just look at the stats. When you look at the team stats, 385 yards in total offense. That's 60 some odd yards or so ahead of everyone else. 176 rushing yards. That's another 30 some odd yards. Was that 32.7 yards more than anyone else? And then fourth in passing at 208 yards a game. I mean, by far, you have proven that it wasn't just the team in Atlanta, but that you have, figured out how to continue your success. You're first in points, first in total yards, second in passing yards, average at least, and then first in rushing yards. And then we haven't even talked about your defense, which is outstanding. But you seem to have taken a 78 overall Colts team and figured out how to play efficient football. 5 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, but a 71.8 completion percentage, 1,765 yards. Not major yards there, but that 71.8 has to be tops, if not one of the tops in the league. Bo Scarborough comes out of nowhere, 790 yards on 6.3 yards per carry, 10 touchdowns already for him. I mean, look, your 4th string guy is Andrew Luck. He's averaging 8.7. Your 3rd string guy is averaging 4.7. Your backup's averaging 4.7. Both of them are getting equal carries. Both are over 200 yards. Nyheim Hines has got 4 touchdowns. And that's not even talking about your receivers. T.Y. Hilton has 40 receptions, 858 yards already, 4 touchdowns on the season. Ryan Switcher throws in another 15 catches. Brashard Perriman's got 12 for 200. He's averaging 16.7 yards per catch. I mean, just a lot of playmakers here. Very, very efficient offense. You're sitting at 6-2 and playing really, really good football, especially on the offensive side of the ball. And I think it just goes to prove that if you're efficient, you don't turn the ball over, even though you jinxed me this week, you're like, you have the least amount of turnovers. And then I go and throw 3 picks in the very next rainy game against Baltimore. But anyway, like, if you're efficient with the ball and you establish the run game, that has always been your plan. Establish the run game, efficient pass game. Don't turn the ball over. You're going to have a winning record in this league. And the Indianapolis Colts, in my opinion, are by far the best complete whole offensive team in the OMFL. So if we're going to talk about offense, we need to also talk about defense. Let's look on the other side of the ball and talk about the defensive side of the ball. A lot of really good defensive teams, but which one kind of floats to the top as your top team on the defensive side of the ball for season 80 here in the OMFL?
Honestly, I think you could put a good case together for a few teams. I think the Seahawks are a team that regularly are on top of the charts defensively. I think what he does well is he corrects turnovers. And like I said earlier about the Texans doing it to the Jaguars, you put guys in situations where they don't feel comfortable playing with, and they're having to do things outside of their normal box, and he creates turnovers. And that's the whole yardage thing doesn't tell the whole story for me for Mo. But if I have to go to a team that is just dominating, and I don't think it's that surprising. It's the 49ers and Big Hurt. If you look so far this year, if I'm not mistaken, he is first in total yards, first in passing, and that says a lot right there, which I know passing hasn't been out the box as explosive as a lot of teams would like to do it, but still, I don't care if you're giving up 104 yards a game passing. Man, that's just ridiculous. And I guess if you just put the math together, he's giving up 83 yards rushing, which is probably 6th or 7th in the league. Man, Big Hurts just got something good going down in San Francisco. He's trying to, he's in a tough division, as I said about the Rams earlier. He's in there with the Seahawks, the Rams, the Cardinals. I know the Cardinals are rebuilding, but from what I've seen, he's still a solid player. He's ran Mo down to the very end in their game earlier this year. I just think you got to look at the 49ers, man. They're just a scary good team. I was going to get some more stats for you real quick. He has got 20 interceptions so far this year, 3 forced fumbles, 25 sacks. Man, that's crazy. Through 8 games, he's averaging about 2.5 turnovers a game, creating by his defense. And I just think that's a solid defense he's got. I think if you go down and look at his roster, I know that San Francisco is not a super great team out of the box, and he's made a couple moves this year. But you look at Sutton, Warner, Tart, I guess is his name, Reuben Foster, all got intercepted. Richard Sherman coming over to Seattle's got 2 interceptions. You got a forced fumbles. Reuben Foster just all around 2 forced fumbles. He's got multiple guys. He's got, I think, 6 guys with more than 3 sacks.
Yeah.
This is just a defense that can come from any angle. It ain't like he's got one guy on his team with 20 sacks. He's got 5, 6, 7 guys that can get to the quarterback. And if you look at it on this side, I think he's got 6 guys that have more than 2 interceptions. So this is just a defense as a whole that just plays in unison. And you can't just pick on one area because, man, you just don't know where it's coming from. I think he's got a very good all-around defense, and I think his statistics show so far this year. And like I said, I think he is 6-2, compete with Mo for that division.
Yep.
And anytime you can, honestly hold your name right there with Mo in any conversation, defensively, record-wise, I think you got to be proud of yourself.
No, I could not agree more. The San Francisco 49ers are making people take notice. I mean, way ahead in the passing game defense in this league. Very good in total defense, right in line with a lot of really good teams. Really, number 1 and number 2 are right up there. I'm going to go with a call that I didn't think I would make until I played them this past week, and that's the Baltimore Ravens. Now, Mackey is one of my favorite people here. I've never hidden my love for that guy. He's really a big part of the OMFL 2 leadership. Really massive part. Really joined here to be a part of the wrestling league, and he's a massive part of that. But here's a team that, again, after I played them, his stats are not going to blow you away. He's 8th in the rushing at 77.1, 9th in passing, 12th in points, 17th in total yards. He's not going to completely blow you away, but I'm telling you, this team is loaded from top to bottom. They have playmakers. Now, I played him in like a rainy, soggy Baltimore weather, balmy, type of AFC, 3 yards in a cloud of mud, so to speak, in the rain. But still, like, he has playmakers from top to bottom on this offense. I mean, look at Terrell Suggs, 26 tackles, 8 sacks. He's got a bunch of guys with multiple interceptions. There's 1, 2, 3 guys with at least 3 interceptions. He's also got Brandon Williams that's got 7 sacks. So he's got tons of playmakers on this team, and that Baltimore team is just like that Rams team that we were talking about earlier, right? He's one of those teams that as he continues to build this roster to fit, I mean, he is playing with Jackson. He's getting Jackson that playing time that he needs. But as he continues to build this roster, he is going to be a competitor in this league. And I think that he has the most all-around, rounded defense so far in this league. Again, not going to blow you away with the stats, but he is right there, top 3 in the rushing, top 3 in the total, and then top 4 in the passing. He, to me, has the most well-rounded, fully rounded defense in the league so far to this point in season 80. And just a really, really good, fun team to watch, and I'm really pulling for him to get it figured out. And the AFC, in my opinion, as we've talked about tonight, with both the defense, in my opinion, and the offense, in my opinion, and then, we talked about the Houston Texans. Like, there's just so many powerhouses in the AFC. This may be the year that somebody finally knocks off the powerful NFC, whether it was you, whether it was Mo winning all these championships. This might be the year that the AFC has that opportunity.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think I wanted to eat my words when I said that a few podcasts ago about the AFC being a weaker conference. And I just got to tell you back, and I'm in that conference. But man, we got some really, really good, solid all around teams, and you got some teams that are just on the brink of figuring it out, and it could be really scary. Like I said, this might be the year. I think Mo's got his hands full over in the NFC and in his own division right now. But I think this is the most. I think somebody said today, and it might have been Cincy, we didn't have no undefeated teams left, if I'm not mistaken. This is the most, I guess you say, level competition playing field we've had in a long time for me. And I think guys should like that. I think guys should like the levelness of the playing field we got right now.
No, I love the switch of power and the new things that we've seen. Now, we've left a lot of time to kind of talk about some owner-submitted questions because guys haven't done that in a while, and we have a ton. We may not be able to sit here and talk about every single one of these in like very full long-term length, but there's some interesting ones in here, and it's funny because I think especially in this route that I've looked at some of these that it seems that, I don't know, that you can definitely see there's a story attached to a lot of these questions that we have here. So 00 asks, he says, what is the OMFL2 used for? What are the expectations of coaches? And I find that an interesting question. Of course, 00 decided to leave the OMFL2. So, look, here is the goal of the OMFL2, right? The OMFL2 is not the OMFL. The men there that help run that program, look, Chaotic he won't tell anybody this, and I'm not trying to like put his stuff out there, but like he's working like 7/12s right now. I mean, that dude is working like a mule. He never sees his family, and yet he still finds time to get his games in, to run the OMFL2, and then for a long time was doing FPR. I just recently took it from him just because the poor guy needed to have something taken off of him. But the OMFL2 was created because we had an entire long list of 7, 8, 9 guys that wanted to be in the OMFL, but there was nowhere to put them. And so they would sit on a waiting list, and then we would give them opportunities, and then we would have to go through 2 or 3 as we figured out gameplay issues. So the thought of Maniac was to create the OMFL2, back in Madden 18, because a lot of guys here wanted a second league to play in, but they didn't want to go outside of the community, or they didn't like other leagues' rules, so they wanted the same feel and type of gameplay, but having an opportunity to stay inside the community. And then we needed somewhere where waiting list guys would go. So the OMFL2 was created to be a developmental league. Now, when people hear that, they may think that has like a bad connotation to it, but it doesn't. Like, it's just a developmental league. It's a place where waiting list guys can go and play, and we can help them through gameplay issues. And we have a place where they can have a little bit more patience and flexibility as they figure out how we expect gameplay to be done here. And at the same time, have a place where guys who want to play in multiple leagues, who want to play with other teams outside of their OMFL team, has that opportunity to go and to do that. And that's all it is for. And I've heard a lot of, chirping birds. I think part of my frustration over the past couple of weeks has been people in the OMFL are extremely impatient with people in the OMFL too. It is not the same league. It is not even remotely close going to be the same. And I'm not tooting my own horn here, but the OMFL2 doesn't have me. And I think that you guys that play in the OMFL2 and who have been displeased with it are seeing how much work that I have to put into the OMFL to make it what it is. And they just don't have that. And they also are doing what they're created to do, to give guys a second place to play if they want to play, and also a place where guys can go in and get this gameplay figured out. But at the same time, Chaotic is making his own calls about sliders, about rules, and things do run slightly different there. So it's not going to have the same feel. It's not going to be exactly the same. So, yeah, I think that that guys need to be more patient and give it an opportunity, but that's what it's for. And if that's not for you and that's not what you're looking for, then don't waste their time, don't waste ours, and just don't go play there. That's your prerogative. But if you do go there, then try to be a little bit more patient. Yeah, and that's just what it is, and that's kind of a me question, but that's what it's created for, and it's working to perfection. Yes, Chaotic has to figure out the communication and the feedback and like how to help people a little bit more because of his time, but he does have Mackie, he does have Jason there, and those guys are putting in the time. It's just the OMFL has been here for 21 years. The OMFL2 has been here for less than a year. So give it some time, guys. Your question, which imports have you seen are having the biggest impact? Which trade or free agent signing has paid off the most so far, in your opinion? I don't really have a say-so in either. To be honest, with everything that I do here, I haven't had an opportunity to really dig super, super deep. And to be honest, like, with everything that goes on, it's just really difficult to remember who imports were and who imports were not, and exactly who had who where. I would say the biggest trade has to go to Bell in Philadelphia, right? Like, he goes out and trades for this guy. He makes the big deal happen, and this guy comes in and puts in 843 yards for him. He is just a big, big play guy. When I think about imports, I'm going to go to the easy ones, and that's a guy that we talked about earlier. Now, there is a guy that I think you'll bring up, but the guy I would bring up would be Nixon. He just seems to make the most plays for his team. He is a big play receiver. Of course, I had the big play import receiver last Madden that made the Hall of Fame in Forbes. Nixon is that type of player. He will make the Hall of Fame unless something crazy happens, because he is a big play receiver that makes plays from top to bottom. So those are the two easy, low-hanging fruits that come to mind. But what are the ones that you kind of think of when you think about your questions?
Well, I think you can look at is it Galente from Seattle?
Yeah.
And you're talking about 16 sacks through 8 games this year.
Galette.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you have to look at somebody like him. Like I said, Kratos and Nixon are two really easy choices, because Nixon's the focal point of Denver. Kratos is just on the way to probably, I can't remember if he got Defensive Player of the Year last.
Can we just pause and say that I would have never guessed that? I mean, this dude is making, what, $26 million a year or something like really stupid like that. He's on the last year of his contract. He's like 35, 34. He's got like 78 speed, and he's leading the league with 12 interceptions.
He is 31 years old. He makes a good, fresh $23.2 million this year, and he's trying to get his money worth of it. 12 picks, 2 forced fumbles, a sack, a defensive touchdown, 25 tackles, single-handedly leading that Jaguars defense. But like I said, Gillette, I think you just got to look at somebody like him. You're
Yeah.
talking about 16 sacks, 24 tackles, a forced fumble, a defensive score. I mean, those are just highlight players that, in my opinion, that stick out. And I'm sure, like I said, I'm sure guys have their imports. I'm sure if they brought their import over, they were key to their success. I've had moderate success with mine. I think my import safety had 2 interceptions last game. It was this big breakout game. But it is nice. And I do think you got to look at somebody like Bell getting traded. Was a real big pickup for Philadelphia. I know he is on a 3-game winning streak after losing, I think, the first 5, which was something, crazy all in itself. But you can look at also Dante Pettis going to Cincinnati in a trade that I think many thought was an odd trade for A.J. Green and some change for Pettis. And Pettis has went to Cincinnati and did nothing but flourish in that offense that Cincyberg has.
Yep, I can't argue with any of that. Outlaw says, how does the OMFL keep a core player cycle after cycle? What makes this league different? I guess I'll count that as a question. I'm not going to dive deep into what makes us different. If you're a part of this league and you're watching this podcast, then you know what makes us different. In my opinion, what makes us as different as we can be. Look, I don't think that we're that different than the Dynasty, then a Madden Ballers League. Like, there are some really great leagues out there that do what we do, right? The content, the podcast, the effort. I think, in my opinion, what keeps people part of this whole community, and especially part of the OMFL, where this community started from, is how I try to treat people and empower people and make things as fair as I possibly can. I think that's what sets us apart. I have people like Dawson and Dwayne and myself and others that really go out of their way to treat people with respect and treat them in the right way, so that people actually enjoy being here. I really try to create a safe space that people want to be here. And then finally, we try to put in the effort to put out as much and as good of content as we can. Again, when you think about the Dynasty, when you think about Madden Ballers League and a couple of these other leagues, they kind of blow us out of the water with some of the really great product that they put out. But we try to do the best that we can, and we're constantly trying to improve how we do that. His second question, again, has a story. He's mad because he and I have had this conversation before. I'll just tell you guys up front, if you watch this podcast, I don't like the vibe of these questions, that you're upset about something, so let's put it on a question and get Nate to talk about it. I don't like that whole vibe, so just putting that out there. But he says, how are our quarterbacks going to develop with XP so low from that position? It makes it a lot harder, if not impossible, to build quarterbacks. What's funny is it's actually set at 100, so you're getting default XP for quarterbacks. So I'd love to hear your input on this, and then I definitely have some feelings.
Well, I mean, I don't think it's impossible to build a quarterback, and I also think that it's a misconception that guys have to have a 99 overall quarterback to win games. I think you can look at a lot of teams that have been successful here and look at that. But I think it's adequate. I also don't think you want to go the other way, Outlaw, and Outlaw knows that I'm an Outlaw fan, but I don't think you want to see it go the other way, where you have guys that are 74 overall and in 2 seasons they're 98 overall. I think it's a happy medium. Like I said, if it's on a default setting. So you're getting what it came out of the box, what technically EA intended it to do. And I think, and just from what I've seen, if you have a quarterback, if you really want to build him, you're going to focus train him. You're gonna I guess you would say that the scheme is going to be built around your quarterback, almost like real life, to get him even more. And you got to produce with your quarterback. You're throwing, and I'm not talking about Outlaw in general. I'm just talking about everybody in general. If you're throwing 30, 35 interceptions a season to a quarterback, and realistically, he's not going to progress to be a good quarterback. So I think you got to take all that in consideration. Yes, you're not going to be able to just have this quarterback on the side, focus train and train everybody else and expect him to be any better. He's got to be the focal point of your development if you want him to be a good quarterback. And I say this from a guy who I don't take a lot of weight and put on my quarterback. If I want my safeties to be good on my team, I focus train 3 safeties per week, and I do everything safety oriented. And now you can transfer as a quarterback. If you want a dominant quarterback, for one, you're going to produce with him, but 2, you're going to develop him and build your team around the quarterback like a real NFL team does.
Yep. I want to at least be respectful and say, I acknowledge you, Outlaw. I acknowledge your frustration and your concern. Um, but we don't make decisions by the seat of our pants. And every decision that we make is with the long term goals in mind of the league, and not can you personally develop a quarterback or not. I will say that you came to me and asked for a bump. You got a bump. I think like a 20-point bump. I think we went from like 70 or 75 or 80, 75 or 80 up to 100. But I also say that these sliders were tested, and I am not going to have what happened last Madden happen again, and that's where we had literally one team, the Seahawks, who had every defensive lineman with 99 block shed, who had 299 overall receivers. Like, there's just some things that we can't have. And if you feel it's unfair, it's not supposed to be unfair. It's not aimed at you, definitely. But I also completely disagree that it's impossible to build a quarterback. Brady has a question. Again, I love Brady, but man, I don't know. Sometimes I think Brady just, he's such an interesting, like, complex character, Mr. Brady. He says, what is real rule deliberations like when decisions are made to implement new changes? So I'll let you kind of see behind the scenes a little bit. This past Madden, I took almost every rule. I think I did take every rule and made a post about it, and started conversations with the board members for their input for us to not only play the game, but look at the rules and what could we do away with and what could be added, how could we simplify things. There's always going to be a balance between adding rules that need to be policed. Brady can be at times a big proponent for adding rules, but he also is not part of any team that has to actually police those rules, and that makes things extremely, extremely difficult. And at the same time, I give my board members their input. There are some things that I just decide, right? Like if at the end of the day I've put in 20 years into this place, no one else has, and if I feel like something has to be done, then I'm going to do it. So let's take a couple things that have happened recently. The board on their own, and I've explained this in another podcast that you can all go listen to. I'm not going to re-explain. The board on their own decided to ban defensive line use. Kind of took a handful of owners who really went out of their way to make things difficult. A couple I got messages from, and I purposely did not respond because, to be honest, I'm still a little salty about the whole thing, just the way that things were handled. I just lost respect for how things were handled, and I wish that they would have been handled in a different way. Either way, I got a whole podcast on that. You can go listen. I made decisions because I felt like I had to find a happy medium to bring peace back to the league, to get the negativity to go away, and I felt like that happy medium was in such a place that it wasn't a big jerk from one way to the other. It literally was a happy in between. So when there are things that I feel like are major decisions, then I will make those major decisions using two people in this league that, just out of respect for them, I won't say who they are, but they're two people that are kind of like my inner board, inside of that board, and I kind of throw ideas at them whenever there's something that I need to make a decision on. But sometimes I will make a decision just on stuff that I think, as the commissioner, I need to make the decision on. So that sometimes it's a back and forth. Sometimes it's a lot of communication. Sometimes it's us getting frustrated with each other and feeling like we're not hearing each other and feeling unheard whenever we present our argument. I will say that there are a couple of guys who keep the peace, one of which is on this podcast with me, pretty much keep the peace at all times, which is another thing. Like, whenever you guys aggravate a couple of my guys who always keep the peace, then I know, okay, it's not just me. Like, these other people are actually the problem here. So that's how things kind of go behind the scenes. Then he asked, after this week, noticed a slight difference. He's basically asking how often we change sliders. He and I had this discussion, and I feel like he and I were not hearing each other, even though I feel like we were both trying to hear each other, we just sometimes we even though we're communicating, we're not communicating. So his argument is leave them alone. Let's just play and adjust our gameplay around them. My argument is I will never do that. That I want to make sure we have the best gameplay and then make adjustments around that. And if that means I need to make adjustments every week, then we will. The adjustments that were being made were around two things. Pass protection. Nobody had time to pass, and people were complaining. Lots of people were complaining. And pass defensive reaction. Those are the only two things that we really tweaked and messed with a little bit of small tweaks around running. The tweaks around running and pass reaction stopped about 3 weeks ago, or 3 advances ago, because we felt like we hit the mark and we got them where they need to go. It was the pass block that needed adjusting. I got a whole podcast about that. If you want to go listen to it, go do that. But I think that we're now set, and we're going to stay set for 4 weeks and then reevaluate. I got some messages tonight about pass blocking being too high, but we're not going to look at resetting anything until we give it about 3 weeks or 3 more weeks, and then look at stats and get people's feedback. Is there anything you want to throw in there about sliders, about rules, about any of that stuff?
Well, I don't want guys to think that we just make rule decisions and rules and slider changes just on the brisk of somebody saying something. The deliberation that goes on in the board chat and in the board forums is it gets kind of intense sometimes. The guys are really stuck certain ways. It is a back and forth. This is not majority of stuff that goes on is not a on the whim kind of decisions. And I think you just have to be careful. I know that guys, that pass rush is too much, pass rush is not enough. At some point, you do have to adjust a little bit. And like I said, like Nate was just saying, let 3 or 4 weeks go by and we'll see if it's a reoccurring trend and see if it's going to be a problem. But I do take it in. I don't think guys give the board, and I'm not speaking for me, and I'm not speaking for Nate, but you got, Bill, Chaotix, Colin, Dawson, and Ziploc or Andrew is in a lot of decision making, even though he's quote unquote not an official member of the board. He does have some input, and I just think that guys don't really give them enough credit when you go in the main chat and you're just ripping this, ripping that, ripping that. There was time put behind and good intentions 100% of the time on rule changes, and the board
Can
itself.
I just pause you real fast? Like, that is such a key word. Not only the time, but the good intentions, and like that's I think what makes. That's why I kind of lost it the other day. That's what makes what we do so thankless and hard and frustrating, that we put in so much time, even doing these podcasts, doing everything that we do, and it's all with great intentions, and yet people attack you like you just slapped their grandma, and it is infuriating and really, really difficult to deal with at times.
I agree. I mean, it is. I guess you'd say. I mean, it is kind of like a slap in the face when you see that, and you the board puts in time. And I can speak for anybody on the board. I don't think anybody on the board is looking out for their own interest when they decide rules. The board ourselves, and excluding Nate the other day on the defensive line thing, we voted on that and we made a move to do it. And maybe it was at that time I thought it was a good thing.
And I still do. I still think it's a good thing. I only put it back because people were making my life a living hell. Oh, did we lose you? Oh,
we probably could have pushed it. We could have pushed it back and maybe gave guys some time. But I hate to be this guy. But if people haven't seen this coming, Nate is. I mean, you've preached about it. I think the board has, and we can go back and listen to any podcast about the defensive line being overpowered. And guys, that I don't know if anybody else ever read that book. You give a mouse a cookie, he'll ask for a glass of milk. And guys, we keep letting you play defensive line. And I understand that. I was a defensive line guy when I got here, and probably for the first Madden and a half I was in my time in the OMFL. But guys started going from that to using the defensive tackle because they know it's an insta shed, and guys, at some point we got to draw the line there, and you know it's coming, so you might as well start practicing with that linebacker. I can harp on that all day, but I do think that, guys, I think you just need to take in consideration, and I'm not asking for a pity party here or anything like that, and I'm not saying this on my behalf, but the board's behalf. I think you just need to take in consideration when rules and stuff are decided that there's no bad intentions there. Dawson's not making a rule so that he can win games. I think he would get a laugh out of that. I think that you just need to, there was some time and effort put in when rule changes are made.
Yeah. And we put up a post every offseason that gives owners an opportunity to talk about changes they want to see. And we do. We put up a post the second that goes up, and we discuss it as a board, and then I let us kind of make the decision together. And I will also just say on a personal note, if you user the defensive line when you play me, go ahead and get ready for your FPR rating to be low. Because you just are. Like, I refuse to give anyone above a 3 that is lame enough to use a defensive line. And I know I'm going to upset some people when I say that. And I really, with all due respect, I don't care. We've been playing this game too long to have to use a defensive lineman for cheap plays. There's just nothing worse than cheap plays. Bill, I'm not counting that as a question. I love you, but I'm not counting that as a question. Jennings had an interesting question. We're going to save your question, Dwayne, because I think that would be that's 2 great discussion points for when we're all together. So I'm going to save that one. But he asked, does Madden 19 have a high tolerance for defensive pass interference? Just to help you, Jennings, our settings are actually pretty high. They're at 75 for defensive pass interference. Is it a symptom of all Madden slider settings, or am I just already frustrated with the game and I'm looking for reasons as to why I can't complete a pass? I think that some of this is changing now that we've given you more time with the pass block, but I do think that you're frustrated just because it hasn't been an easy transition over to all Madden into Madden 19. I think that frustration will begin to go away some now that we have the sliders fixed. But I don't think it has a high tolerance. I think Madden always has some weird plays that take place where you think that should be pass interference and you don't get it. But look, at the end of the day, I can't make it much higher than it is because guys will start losing games because of pass interference and just lob the ball over, and we just can't have that. But kind of what are your thoughts around there?
Well, I think you could go back to, in Madden 18. I think Nate, I don't know if you could say that when you threw the ball down the field and you started seeing animation, pass interference was coming. You just knew it. I always used to tell Pepper that when I played Odell Beckham Jr. Just field, if it was a jump ball or if it was going to be a contested ball, he was going to get the benefit of the doubt, and you could just see that animation take place. I'm glad Madden 19 hasn't had that yet. I think. And I also think you have guys disagree with you. I think we've had Jason and a few other guys
says
that
too
they
high.
thought. Say what?
Just they'll say it's too high.
Right. They said it was too high, and they were having it called them too much. So I can see both sides of it, and I can see actually both sides being frustrated at it. And I'm a guy who plays a game, and you look back and 5 minutes after the game's ended, you're pissed off, and you think this and you think that. And then, I let the next day go by and I watch my tape again, and nothing that I thought actually happened. But I'm not saying that I do think that I like Madden 19's pass interference better. I don't think you have as many of those weird animations or the predictable pass interference plays. And like I said, we're not having guys just chunk the ball 60 yards down the field and get a pass interference like you've seen a little bit in Madden 18. So I don't think it's too crazy. I think it's been hit and miss. And like I said, my example is I think we've had a couple guys, including Jason, and I use him as an example for somebody who does user the secondary as a guy who would say we have the pass interference happen too often. So like I said, it probably is more frustration, Jennings, and I know you like to pass the ball and you like to get the ball moved around, and so I can understand that frustration, but I don't think it's one way or another, in my opinion.
Yep, and I just glanced in chat real quick. If anybody's your agent for a Madden $1 Million Challenge, that's going to be me. So UMV, go find somebody else. We're going to get to our last 3 sets of questions, ones that's not really questions. This all comes from our buddy Miguel. He says a lot of interceptions this season. Could it be accuracy problems, route running problems, or pressure because of a weak offensive line? I'll definitely go first on this. I think it was 100% pass blocking slider. The slider was backwards, and so as we tried to improve it, we were actually making it worse. And I think because guys are A, impatient, and B, we're not having a lot of time, they were forcing throws. And I think some of us do have weak offensive lines. I think quarterback accuracy is perfect. It's at 50. It feels really good. I think there was a little discretion about people feeling like receivers getting out of their routes late. But I think it's 100% a pass blocking thing. And I personally feel that goes into a second question. I'll kind of combine those two. How do we feel about the current sliders? I think they're spot on. There may be a very slight tweak in some very small things, but I think this is probably where we're going to be outside of maybe a 1 or 2 point tweak in pass blocking. I think this is where we're going to stay until the end of the season and then really reevaluate after we get to the end of the season. I think they're spot on. They feel really, really good, and now I can finally try to concentrate on my team and try to concentrate on playing football.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right there. I think, like I said, and it's always, it's always really odd, like I said, because you think you're improving the pass block, and it's actually just completely ass backwards. But that's
So
no one's fault. I
frustrating.
mean, it is, because you can't make a 30-point jump for 1 week and see if it works. I mean, you kind of have to inch it, or just gradually increase. And then once you find out it's too far, you don't win. You know what I'm saying? It's just it's not as easy as it sounds to test that slider out like that. But I do think a lot of it, and you can kind of go through the quarterback statistics. I think you only have 3, maybe 4 quarterbacks that average over 10 yards a throw. I think you look at the completion percentages. I think, guys, you couldn't bring the way you played Madden 18 into Madden 19, and I'm glad. And I think, guys, like I said, the pass blocking hasn't helped. I'm going to give y'all a scapegoat on that one. But you got to be more patient, and there ain't no forcing. And all Madden, the defenses react. And I'll speak from example. A play that in Madden 18 was a 99% of the time an automatic catch, and Nate will agree with me, it was the out route or the bench route. And not anymore. And I think, guys, you're carrying over Madden 18 into Madden 19. And it's not a horrible strategy to do, but if you want to bring that over, you just kind of got to adjust to what the game is giving you. And me and Dawson always have that conversation. I tell him force and passes. And if you have the slightest doubt that guy might intercept it, just don't throw it. And I think and I've always said that about Priest. And Priest is the Aaron Rodgers run and gun gunslinger title. Is a guy who throws the ball down the field and just hopes for the best. And I think a lot of guys are doing that right now. And I know the lack of success running the ball has made guys pass the ball. I just think you be more patient. Like I said, pass blocking should help. You should have more time in the pocket. I will say this, man. If you ain't you got to have some route variety. There's too many routes out there to run the same routes over and over again, because these all Madden defenders pick up on it. And I recognize that really early on. And as a guy who's only thrown 5 touchdowns through 8 games, hey, man, when it comes down to it, I'm not risking throwing an interception. And, I mean, you look at I think there's only, there's 26 through 35, 9 quarterbacks that have less than 10 interceptions so far this season. And I bragged on Drew Brees for having only 3, and he's at 6 right now. I joke, Nate, I'm joking. But I think that just speaks volumes as guys. You just take time. You have more time to throw the ball now. Learn your playbook and just get some more variety in your passing game, and I think it'll help you a long way.
Yeah. He also says the Ravens have the number 1 pass defense. Yeah, if you go back and listen to this show, man, you'll hear me brag about your Ravens. But, yeah, I think that guys just need to give it time. And we don't have time for this rant, and so I won't go on a rant. We'll save it for the next show, but I will go on a rant this weekend. Feedback forms have to get better, and it's not the submission of feedback forms, but it's the actual giving of feedback. Guys are selecting 3s and 4s and then putting NA or dots or whatever, and like, no, like you actually have to tell me why you gave that rating. And then, I have an owner in this league that has been getting all 5s, and I went back and watched a couple of the films and realized that it was some of the worst gameplay that I've ever watched in the OMFL. Like all drag routes, just like really crazy stuff. And I'm like, okay, like people are not giving us appropriate feedback, so we have to clean that up and we have to do better. Let me give 2 really quick updates. Again, Chaotic has been working a ton, so I don't really have a lot of updates about the OMFL2. Probably start reaching out to Mackie for OMFL2 updates just until Chaotic can get things to slow down a little bit. But I know that they are progressing. We are trying to get them full again. They've lost a couple of owners. Just that happens is with a new league. Guys just disappear. But we'll get them full again here soon. But they are progressing. I think they're in week 2 or 3. So things are looking really good in the OMFL too. If you know somebody that's looking to be a part of our community, please send them our way. If you're in the OMFL, you do get some incentive plans. Looking over at the TFL, it says out of the gates, the Steelers and the Panthers are pacing the field, with the Steelers sitting at 5-1 and the Panthers at 4-1, having the first bye week of the season on their schedule. Yes, this is one of the more surprising stories so far, is the ability of our computer-owned teams to remain relevant. While they haven't won every game thus far, each are still in contention for if they're receiving new owners down the home stretch of the season. So as they progress, their computer teams are actually playing really well. And it says the final major storyline is the dominance of the defense. And while in some cases there are yards to be had, each game seems to be relatively low scoring early on. While the league is considering eventual rule changes to make games more exciting, for now it's the recipe to success seems to be on that side of the ball. And we even noticed that here, even though scores are improving and changing, the defense was definitely leading the charge. And then, of course, a quick update in the NBC. It says the Vikings remain the only undefeated team at 6-0 going into week 7. And Case Keenum is leading the league in interceptions thrown with 24 through 6 games. That's a lot of interceptions. And then 3 rookie quarterbacks leading the league in passing yards: Josh Rosen, Josh Allen, and Baker Mayfield. So it seems like the rookie quarterbacks in the NBC are making an impact. And that brings us to the end of our show, man. And you and I have went, where are we? We are at 1 hour and 3 minutes and 20 seconds long. Just me and you. This would have been a 6-hour show if we'd had all 4 of us. So let's go ahead and put a bow on this Tuesday night and put a bow on the show.
So you're telling me that Vikings team that was 6-0, the quarterback has 207?
No, Case Keenum is now in Denver. So.
Okay. I was going to say I'm really impressed by that. No interceptions. No, I think I'll tell you what. I don't know if we've ever seen our league advance as fast as we've been advancing. Yeah. I mean, we were moving, and let's keep it up this week since I'm on a bye week this week. Let's keep that moving. But I think the excitement. We're still getting quite a few write-ups, articles.
Tons of write-ups.
I'm saying Cincyberg is starting the power rankings, and as soon as I can learn to work my Nate magic on this mic and program, I'll be trying to get some Game of the Weeks out, and I've kind of talked Dawson to try to help me co-host a little bit. So we can get on a rant. We might even do like halfway through our gin drinking special, so y'all really get some talking going. No, but for real, Cincyberg has a really good power rankings going on. Guys are excited, and like I said, the disparity in the league is the best I've ever seen it. And I think we're in a good place. And you're talking about the OMFL 2 owners earlier, and I was in OMFL 2 for the first season and a half that they had it, and it is a learning curve, guys. I think if you're stepping from OMFL, the lead flagship league, to the OMFL 2, you do have to be more tolerant. As somebody who I've ran into some rough owners, but that's what the OMFL 2 is there for, to critique these guys, bring guys in. None of us, I can speak for myself, I was not ready for the OMFL when I first came, at least not FPR-wise. I think I got my first good FPR chewing when I played Nate or Chaotic. I can't remember who it was. But like I said, this kind of, cuts that first one, at least we're hoping, cuts that first big FPR mess up before it gets to the flagship league. And I do think that we need to be a little more tolerant. And like I said, there's a bunch of good guys, and there's some guys, and like I said, that are waiting to make this jump to the flagship league. And guys, we were just talking about earlier about guys complaining about this, complaining about that. Hey man, there is no other community league like this out there. So you need to enjoy it, and I'm ready to play some football.
Yeah, me too. I'm ready to go play them. I'm even trying to talk myself into staying on a play tonight, maybe playing the Rams. He's already messaged me during the show. I will say I don't know if Tim or Gaddy are going to watch this, or listen to this or watch this or whatever. Gaddy is an old OMFL guy. I know that you want to move up, and I'd love to move you up and get you a spot. Just got to be a little more active and get plugged into the community. We're only going to call up the best of the best into the OMFL. And Tim, bringing you up because I know that you've commissioned your own leagues, may even commission your own leagues still. Just want you to know that I appreciate you, and we got your eyes on you, and would love to get you a spot. Super excited about No Comp, who just moved up. He plays H1Z1 with us a lot. I've got to talk to him a ton. Unfortunately, we lost an owner this week due to real life stuff. I know that some of you have seen his stream pop up in a Madden league, but that is his own personal Madden league, as Tanner has his own personal Madden league with like 5 or 6 guys. Like, it's a really low commitment, but had to step away for real life reasons. I will also bring up what you brought up. The hot seat has been coming out each and every week. I hope that you guys are enjoying the hot seat. And also the NBC is kind of whipping our butts, especially over the last couple of days, man, with that content. This is by far the most outside of the OMFL content we've ever had, and it's really amazing. I'm loving it. I'm blasting that out on Twitter. I'm putting it on Madden Accord. It just gives us really great content to drive. And at the end of the day, the best content is coming from what you hear, right now. I just appreciate Dwayne trying to help make time so that we have a show. And look, I had other things I wanted to do tonight. I got off work late, but we sacrificed because we love doing this, and we love doing this show, and we love putting out great content for you guys. So thanks for listening to us ramble for the last hour and 8 minutes now, but we caught you up through week number 7 in the OMFL. We'll come back this weekend. Hopefully we'll have as much of the crew with us as we can. Maniac's a little hit and miss because he's very involved in his son's high school football team. That keeps him pretty busy over the weekend, but hopefully we'll get him back and find a time where he can be back with us. And we will be back this weekend with a whole brand new Press Pass Live. A new hot seat's going to drop. Can't wait to start seeing those Game of the Week videos come out again. I just don't have time to keep up with those, but we'll make sure we can share those to the playlist because we do have a playlist to that. And that's going to be another really big thing. I think that everyone has stepped up their game with the incentive plan, with the content, with the involvement. But I'm challenging you to share your videos. Share exclamation mark share OMFL, share NBC, share OMFL2, share TFL, share GFW, share GFGA. Like, all, you can share every league here. It gives you step-by-step instructions. I have a graphic uploaded. Like, it's as easy as 1, 2, 3. You just follow the steps. You'll have a really cool graphic that you can put on it. Help us upload stuff to the playlist and really build our playlist and create that content. You're already streaming the games. Just take at least 5 minutes. It'll take you less than that to make sure you plug them into our playlist on YouTube. So, Dwayne, thank you again so much, man. I appreciate you more than I can express. I appreciate everybody that's part of our league. Thanks for kind of putting up with us as we figure out these settings and these sliders. I feel like we're there, and I feel like now we can concentrate on the community and really getting our games in and having a good time. And I'm interested to see where things are going to go over the next couple of weeks. So for Dwayne, for all of the guys here in the OMFL leadership and all of the leadership in the Grown Folks Online community, thanks so much for tuning in to our podcast tonight. Press Pass Live is coming to you live this weekend along with the hot seat, so make sure that you plug in and check it out. You guys have a great week, a blessed week. God bless you. We'll see you later. Peace.
Later, guys.